Hello, my darlings. It's Tuesday, the 4th of February. And I have a little bit of time, so I thought I'd pop down and just sit, have a cup of tea with you. And today's subject, yeah, funnily enough, having had a conversation with my youngest daughter not so long ago while she was staying over, and she was saying categorically that she was never ever going to have children. And I looked at her and I said, "Are you absolutely sure that's exactly what you want?" I said, "Because when I was your age, at the age of 20, going on 21, I didn't want children either." And she was like, "Yep, yep, yep, I'm absolutely sure I don't want children." And then she went on to list why she didn't want them. And I wrote them down. They say that being born is non-consensual. So I thought that was a bit of a strange one to tell me that she didn't want to have kids because they didn't choose to be born. Well, and I said to her, "Well, nobody chooses to be born, darling. They just sort of arrive on the planet. Some people plan pregnancies." I said, "I did in a fashion." I said, "You are after 4 miscarriages, you, my darling, are number 6. You are the 6th child. Um, our eldest was the 5th, yeah, but before that, we'd lost 4 babies. So we were quite excited, to say the least, that we were expecting at all. And we had 2 beautiful, healthy daughters, healthy and intelligent and wonderful in every way. But the eldest hasn't ruled out having children, but she doesn't want to have them until she's settled, which is perfectly acceptable. That's how I felt about having a family as well. But the youngest is definitely, "I am not having children at all." And so these were the reasons why she said that she didn't want them. And bearing in mind that this is Generation Z, or Zoomers, as I'm being told that their colloquialism is. She said, "I don't want to bring a child into a world facing issues like genocide, climate change, discrimination. Despite being one of the richest nations on the planet, we are increasingly becoming very, very poor, and to such an extent that I can't even afford to get myself on the property ladder. Therefore, why would I bother dating? Because we can't afford to date, let alone get married, let alone buy a house and start a family." She goes, "The majority of it, all things included, all the problems that's going on around the world, the biggest problem is being unable to financially afford to start a family because they can't afford to leave the house and buy a home and get going in life because they've got student debt and they haven't got the job that they need to give them a comfortable, not even a comfortable income, and an income. They haven't even got a job to give them an income. So that was one of the biggest reasons why she said she's definitely not having children until something fundamentally changes. She will never ever have a child. And it got me to thinking, she's a highly educated young lady. She's very motivated and wants to get on in the world. And she wants to go out and do her part in the world. But she feels as though she can only go so far, and then she's going to have to stop and assess the situation. Well, aren't we all? It's part of the human makeup of who and what we do. We never go charging ahead. Well, some do, but they always come unstuck. Those that are prudent and spend a bit of time thinking, um, they do plan things better, I do feel. But it's getting to a point, and Elon Musk, to take about one person, is put money into fertility clinics to find out why we're struggling to have children. And I can tell you, Elon, one of the biggest reasons why people aren't having children is they cannot afford them. It's got to such a point in life that they're not being given the chance to leave home, to go into adulthood and get a mortgage, get a job, and be able to start laying down foundations for a stable life to raise a child. I honestly feel that my generation, Generation X, is probably going to be the last generation that could have a child and have a career and buy a house and own a car and have a pension and have all those things, because I don't see in the current format of how the finances of the United Kingdom and, well, the rest of Western civilization, I just don't see how going forward that the next generation can do all that I've done. And that's only, they only want the same as what we've had. And us as parents, all we want is for the next generation, our children, to do better than we did. And for the first time, I don't think that they can. In fact, I think they're slipping backwards. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault that there's such a financial quagmire, such a mess, that these children are, they're not failing to start. That it's not a failure to get them out the front door and onto the, failure to launch. Is that they can't launch because they can't afford to launch. The jobs are difficult to come by, even though they're educated and they're throwing their weight behind wanting to get going, and they're wanting to get those jobs. They're going out with the attitude of, you need us to work for your company, because the workforce you've got at the top end, they're going to be retiring, so you're going to want to replace them. Hello, we're right here. And for some reason, they're just not getting into the job market and working. And they want to work. They want to contribute. They want to go into the field that is their chosen vocation. And that's what they spent their time studying, so that they can go into that field. And then they find that the jobs are not there in their field, so they go off and do something else, and then they still find there's no jobs available. So it's a catch-22. They can't get the job, so they can't leave home, and they can't go into adulthood properly and get a partner and settle down and have children. And until, fundamentally, if the financial situation within this country does not resolve and sort itself out, you are going to find a sudden birth rate drop. And everyone's going to be stood around scratching their head saying, is it because everybody's infertile? Is it because no one can have children anymore? You need to really start being honest with yourselves and realize that it's not that they can't have children, is that they can't afford to have children. They can't, if they cannot afford to take care of themselves, it would be financial suicide to bring a baby into that situation. Because if they can't take care of themselves financially, how on earth are they going to take care of a newborn baby? It's just not going to happen. So, to look at a book that was written in 1992 by P.D. James called Children of Men. It's set in England in 2021, where the crux of the problem, as is in the film that was made an adaptation from the book, the infertility is the problem, right? That's where we end up with the problem of not being able to have children. All the people are infertile for whatever reason. They are infertile, and in 2021, it's not just that in the real world, it's not just that in 2021 they're infertile. They cannot afford to think about starting a family because they haven't got a job, they haven't got anywhere to live, they have no they've got their education behind, but they've got the debt of the student loan. So those three things alone are going to say, well, now is not a good time to start thinking about bringing a baby into all of this. It's not. So what we need to address, some very stark things. We need to address the cost of living crisis within this country. And the fact that everything's spiraling out of control. Your gas, your water, your electricity, your food, your rent, your mortgages, interest rates. They're all spiraling and going higher and higher and higher. And it's getting to the point where even people like myself, who have been able to absorb, can no longer absorb. We're having to drop things because we've got priorities. Our priorities: keeping a roof over our heads, keeping the lights on, and putting food on the table. Everything else after that is a luxury. And life shouldn't be like that. Life should not be like that. And yet here we are living that nightmare. And it's steadily getting worse, and it's getting worse because further down the food chain, the next generation that's coming up, Generation Z, Zoomers, they are now coming out of university with their degree, ready to go into the chosen profession, wanting that job. The jobs aren't there, or they're not hiring, or whatever. There's every excuse under the sun. And yet they have the audacity to turn around and say that the Generation Z is lazy, bone idle, and won't get off the backsides and go to work. They'd love to have the chance to go out and get to work, but you're not giving it to them. Why are you not giving it to them? Because I bet your business is in financial distress. And what's the first thing a business does when it's in financial distress? It sheds its workforce. I know these things, right? So they can't get a job, which means they can't leave home, which means they can't buy a home, which means that they can't start dating because they can't afford to get married, and let alone they can't even afford to have children. And all this is going on while everything else is spiraling out of control. You're going to get to a point within, I'm just using my own country, the United Kingdom, you're going to get to a point when there's no more babies being born, there's no more houses being bought. They're going to give up going off to university because there's no job at the end of it. and the whole system is going to come toppling down like a pack of cards. And they're going, I can see it, they're going to blame the younger generation for being too lazy to get off the backsides and go out and do something without looking at the actual problem is they couldn't anyway. They couldn't even if they wanted to, because the opportunities weren't there. And that brings me back to what I was saying, that I feel that my generation, Gen X, is going to be the last generation that can afford the house, the car, the pension, and to have children and put them through university. I really do, unless something fundamentally changes. And I put it to the universe, I put it out there that what's the solution to helping our children, Gen Z, get on in life when all opportunities that they are trying to give themselves to be better educated, to give themselves more opportunities to get out into the workforce, to give themselves the opportunity to buy a house, to meet a partner and have a baby, right? When all those avenues are being closed off, how then can the older generation blame the younger generation when I was talking yesterday about communication. I want Gen Z to sit down with the boomers, with us as mediators, and explain to them that if they want a future for mankind, then the boomers are going to have to leave the financial system better than what it is right now. And they need to give actual incentives for the younger generation to have children. And a big one would be childcare, and make sure that some more help goes into good, affordable childcare. And that instead of I just feel like all the money is being mismanaged to such an extent now that businesses are hemorrhaging cash in all the wrong areas, and they're cutting the workforce, which is making it impossible for the younger generation to get onto the workforce. Something fundamental needs to happen. And it starts with the older generation making provision enough so that the younger generation have got a chance to get on and do what they're supposed to do, which is get into the workforce, get a home, and if they wish, get married and have children. I'd like them to have the same opportunities that I've had. And yet, I feel as though their opportunities that I've had have been taken and denied to the next generation. And this is one of the biggest reasons why the birth rate is plummeting. It's just because they can't physically afford to have the kids, because they can't afford to enter the adult form of life. It's not right that you're in your late 20s, early 30s, and you're still living at home with your mum and dad, and you're not married, and you're not making a future for yourself. That is something is incredibly wrong if that's what's happening, and it is happening. And I worry that what kind of effect is that going to have on their mental health when everywhere they go it's like a door's being slammed in the face. So I put it to the elder generation, the ones above me. can we do something about finances and get things back on an even keel? Because we can no longer continue on this path, right? It is not working. What are your suggestions? And this is thrown open to the younger generation as well, Gen Z. What would be your solution to your problem? Right, I can see what your problem is. I think it starts with dialogue. I think it starts with telling the older generation this is the problems that's facing us. Please don't tell us that we're born idle, lazy, and aren't prepared to go out and claim our stake in the land. Please don't tell us that, because that's not true. That's a lie. And that's a lie that the media is feeding, right? And it's wrong, and it shouldn't be that. And sometimes the more you say something, the more people believe it, and instead of looking at the actual fundamental problem. So we need to get these youngsters into the world of work and on the path to adulthood, right? And every time that they've got an opportunity, well, they haven't got opportunities, have they? And I want them to have opportunities, because they're our future. If we want United Kingdom PLC to have a future, we have to invest in what's the one most important thing: investing in the future. How can we invest in the future? By making sure that the ones that are coming up have got a chance. So how are we going to go about it? And I look forward to hearing what your solutions are. I really do. For me, my solution is we start really talking about how things are, and we change the way that the financial system is. And we change it to benefit the younger generation, because if we don't, then the older generation, the United Kingdom is going to cease to be how it is right now. It will just collapse under its own weight if we don't do something soon. Well, if you like what I say, give me a thumbs up. And if you really like what I do, you can always give me a follow. And I am actually going to be looking for a copy of P.D. James' Children of Men, an original, a first edition. And if I come across it, I'm going to be collecting it, because it is a subject that absolutely fascinates me. It is both dystopian and horror, and realms of it could possibly happen, which is the kind of books I quite like. So yes, definitely on the hunt for an original P.D. James from 1992. I'll be looking for a Faber and Faber, which is the UK edition. But if I can't, then I'll have to look for an Alfred A. Knopf, which is the USA edition. So we will see if I manage to get one. Well, my darlings, happy readings. I hope you're all got fantastic books. And cheers for a cup of tea. And no doubt I'll see you tomorrow. And please feel free to comment. And, what was your response to not having children and getting ready and going out into the workforce and having opportunities denied? What's your take on that? Thank you, and no doubt I'll be back later with another video. Take care, my darlings. Bye bye.